Okay, it's 3:10. We're gonna call the meeting to order. We have a very full agenda, so we'll get right to it. The first item of business is to review the minutes from our last meeting. Did anybody have any edits, comments, or questions about the meeting minutes? Do we have any objections to approving the meeting minutes? Okay, then if there are no objections, we'll consider the minutes approved and we'll move on to administrative reports. We'll start with Chancellor Engel.
Thank you, Dr. Simmons. I want to report that our Vice Chancellor for Diversity and Engagement Search is continuing on. We hope to conclude that before the end of the month, and there'll be a campus announcement there. I also want to thank the Faculty Senate for persevering in a very difficult year. I think the Zoom meetings have worked well. You've had a lot of work to do. You've accomplished that. You've taken on some really deep, significant subjects, and I appreciate all of the work of everyone on the Faculty Senate. So thank you.
Thank you, Chancellor Engel. Are there any questions for the Chancellor? Okay, then we'll move on to Provost Hale.
Thank you, President Simmons. I'll be brief because I know you have a full agenda today. Most of what I'll report, some of you will have heard on the Thursday morning forum that President Simmons and I co-host with one another. The first thing that I wanted to let you know is that the 9 commencement ceremonies that will take place next week we ended up with approximately 1,260 students that would be participating across the 9 ceremonies. Those ceremonies on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday are full or nearly full. The Wednesday and Thursday ceremonies are a bit less full. And I wanted to let faculty know that on a voluntary basis for the ceremonies that are not full to the brim, where there is still some seating left available, you may attend those ceremonies if you would like to. And I think you all will have received an email in the last week or so from Laura Cagle indicating how you could sign up to do that if you want to. Let me be clear for all faculty members that your participation in commencement is voluntary. It is not something that is compulsory, but if you'd like to share the occasion with your students and their guests, in some instances, you will be able to do that. The second thing that I wanted to do is to let you all know that the campus's information related to tenure or promotion has left campus and been sent on to the system office. I would like to congratulate the candidates for tenure and promotion this year. It was a very strong crop of candidates that were being considered this year, and the cases were successful. I'll be following up with the deans and with RTP committee chairs related to a couple of issues. There were at least 2 instances where there was something less than an arm's length relationship between a candidate and an external reviewer, and so I'll be providing some more guidance regarding that so that we don't have repeats of that in the next cycle. It is also the case that we had one instance where it appears that a candidate reached out to an external reviewer directly, and that's something else that is not supposed to happen. In none of those instances does it appear to have affected the dossiers or the candidate's case, in part because the RTP committees did such a good job of having additional external reviews. So even though we had to discount or not consider a letter in 3 instances, it didn't keep the case from moving forward. So I was also grateful for that. The third thing and final thing that I wanted to let you know is you would have heard yesterday on the Chancellor's webinar that an announcement is being put together related to a return to work for the fall. And I wanted to let the faculty know that what I have recommended to the Chancellor is that the return to work date for faculty members, the return to work in person date for faculty members would be August 2nd. August 1st is when contracts kick in for 9-month faculty members, and August 1st this year is a Sunday. And so we, or I have recommended the following Monday, which is August 2nd, or 2 weeks before the start of school. Chancellor or President Simmons, I'm sorry, I almost gave you a raise there. President Simmons, that's my report, and I thank you for the opportunity.
I have to say that's a raise I don't want. Anybody have any questions for the provost? Okay, thank you very much, Provost Hale. Today we have a special guest, UTC's police chief, Bob Ratchford.
Thank you, President Simmons, and I want to thank everybody in the Senate who has allowed me the opportunity to come speak with you. And I'll be brief about some of the things that we've had going on here at the university that's involved the police department. We welcome all input, both positive and ways that we may be able to improve the services we provide to the community. And I want to thank you as we go throughout the years. I want to keep the dialogue open, and I want to encourage folks to give us a call should there be any kind of issue that may come to their attention that we might be able to address. One of the things that we have been, I'll say, plagued with since this first of the year, and most people are probably aware of it, are the thefts from automobiles. If everybody give me a nod of the head, everybody thinks that they've heard about these. This is not just confined to the university, but this is basically pretty much nationwide. I've spoken with chiefs from across the region, and most recently Chief Roddy with Chattanooga, and he has been gracious enough to include us on a new crime prevention program that I'm kind of pushing today, called Lock It, Hide It, Hold It. And basically it's just what it says. It's pretty simplistic in nature, but it's one of the ways that we can help each other. And since we are helping each other here at the university and out in the region, we all need to try to encourage folks to do this. I was meeting with my leadership team a while back, and we were talking about ways to address this problem that we've been having here and nationwide, and was interrupted in the meeting by a phone call from Chattanooga Police Department, who was basically plugging this program because they, as well as people across the county, are just getting blistered by the number of break-ins from their region, from their districts. Now, the majority, and I'll tell you this right off the bat, since the first of the year, we have had 56, that's 56 burglaries from autos here on campus alone. And this is a nationwide epidemic. I was looking at the stats and going through seeing how we could perhaps narrow the focus of where this is happening and what's happening. And the majority, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say probably 90 to 95% of the vehicles that are burglarized have been unlocked. That's the first and best step that we can practice in keeping our property secure, is locking our vehicles. Now, this is just, I'm speaking solely on the burglaries from the autos, but this includes both our offices, our homes, and like I say, when you go home, this is something you may want to consider doing as well, as far as just hardening the target. Now, I said 90 to 95% of the vehicles have been unlocked. These are just crimes of opportunity. We put out some information on how to prevent this from happening. But people get busy, people get things on their mind, and sometimes they'll walk away from their cars. So some of the things that we may want to consider also. The second part, let's see, lock is the first part. Lock your vehicles, make sure they're secure, and just look back over your shoulder just to make sure that you have. The second part of this program, this crime prevention push that we're putting out, is hide it. Some of the things that we've had stolen up here at the university, most of the time when people just look for a crime of opportunity, they're just going to rummage around and see what they can find. Look in the glove compartment, look in the console, see if they can find any loose money, jewelry, whatever there may be. The second part, the hide it, is just keep things out of sight. When things are laying out in the seats, laying on the dash, wherever, this just gives people an opportunity, criminals of opportunity, to see what's in there that they may want. We had a vehicle that was entered by force that was locked not too long ago, where they had seen a pretty high dollar speaker system in the car itself. So they saw something they wanted to, and they forced their way into the car to take this. But if people will keep things out of sight, lock it in the trunk, hide it under your seat. If you lock your car, if you don't want to put it in the trunk, and we strongly recommend don't take it out of your car once you arrive and then carry it around to the back of your car to put it in the trunk. We want you to secure this property before you get to campus, going from point A to point B. Now, if it's something that you cannot lock up, hide it, and you're going to take it with you, that's the best thing to do as far as number 3. Hold it. Take it with you. Take it to your office and make sure when you leave your office is secure. But I just want to reinforce that we are going to be pushing out this program. You're probably going to be seeing some signage. We're having some signs printed up to place around some of the parking lots on campus. The primary areas that these cars are being burglarized are on the exterior lots, but the interior lots have been and can be hit as well. So I want you to remember, as far as lock it, hide it, and hold it. And please be sure and pass that along to your friends and loved ones also, because this is almost an epidemic proportion across the nation. And just a few simple, proactive, precautionary measures can help secure your property and help us in the apprehension of the criminals. Now, I'm going to close up with, please feel free. A lot of people don't care to get involved, don't want to get involved, but please feel free to report all suspicious persons and activities that you see here on the campus, even if it's just the hair on the back of your neck standing up. Please feel free to let us know about this as well. And we can send an officer over there just to question the individual about their motive to be here at the university, if they're a guest, if they're a visitor, or if they may have legitimate business here at the university. So I'm just going to close it up with the program of lock it, hide it, hold it, and you're going to be seeing some signage around campus just as a reminder to people just to be proactive instead of reactive. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chief Ratchford. Are there any questions or comments for the chief? Okay, thank you. I'm going to back up a second. I see a question came in for the provost. I didn't catch it before we moved on to the chief. So Provost Hale, there was a question that came in on the chat. What is expected of faculty in totally online programs? I think this is in reference to our return to campus.
In totally online programs, if 100% of the faculty members' teaching assignments are online, that person will be expected to be on campus for departmental functions that may be meeting face-to-face. They won't be expected to be on campus for other reasons.
Okay, thank you. I see Julia has her hand up.
Thanks. I have a question for Chief Ratchford. Thank you for the presentation. You said that we should call if we see suspicious persons, and I just wanted to raise the concern that there's been, I think, encouragement from law enforcement in general to focus on suspicious activities rather than suspicious persons, as that has frequently historically led to profiling of people based on race and people who are perceived to appear to belong or not. And I was wondering if you have any thoughts on that? Any suggestions on how we can reconcile that with safety concerns, and also whether you keep statistics on what kinds of people do get called in as suspicious?
Basically, these suspicious persons and suspicious activities go hand in hand. It doesn't matter who the individual is, male, female, it doesn't matter. If people see someone going through a parking lot, they may not see who the driver may be if they're in a car, but if they're circling the lot just slowly, they may be looking for a vacant parking space, or they may be just seeing if they can identify any cars that may be open, even prior to seeing the individual that's actually operating the vehicle. Suspicious persons may be someone who might be walking through a parking lot, looking into vehicles and going to the next one, looking into vehicles. They're not looking for them for their own vehicle, or see if they remember which car they left their keys in. It doesn't matter about that, but it's just if they're looking in the vehicle and they move on to another vehicle and start looking. It's just kind of suspicious persons with that kind of suspicious activity. And it doesn't hurt to just let us know. If you do suspect something, that's just if your instincts just say there's something wrong with this picture right here. It doesn't necessarily depend on the individual, but just what they are doing. So it kind of goes hand in hand, the suspicious activity and the suspicious persons. As far as statistics go, we keep stats on pretty much everything. As far as the number of vehicles that have been entered that have been unlocked, that have compared to the ones that have been locked, the property that's been taken from the vehicles, whether it be electronic equipment or whether it may be just cash or jewelry. But yes, we do keep statistics on a number of items.
Other questions or comments for any of our administrators? Alex Zelen is next.
So I want to follow up with Julia's comment, because we know, at least in the research and in practice, that our Black colleagues and community members are often more times targeted as acting suspiciously when in fact they are not. And so the call to call in anyone who's acting suspiciously, and then as we know with the results of within the past year, especially as has been demonstrated in the United States, of the inequitable treatment of our Black colleagues and community members, making sure how do we ensure their safety, because we know that they are most likely or more likely going to be called in simply for being Black.
One of the things we train our officers on annually is diversity training. And there is a number of policies and general orders and procedures that we train our officers on an annual basis about how not to discriminate. And we do not believe in bias-based policing as far as the profiling goes. We do not target any type of race, ethnicity, any kind of background, any kind of status, whether they're wearing nice clothing, whether they're wearing dirty clothing. We base it strictly on the activity that's occurring at the time and not necessarily on the person itself.
I think that's useful, but what we know from, again, as Alex said, research is that however well-trained your officers are, the people in the community that are being urged to call to report suspicious people don't always have that training. And that the escalation of a situation to pointing out somebody as being suspected of a criminal act does place certain people in greater danger than others. Again, that's well documented. And so I think that it would be worth having a larger conversation about what are the best measures to take to protect property without placing the people on our campus at greater risk, because I think that's everyone's highest priority. And I'm not suggesting that you necessarily can answer this question right now, but I get concerned when I hear people told to trust the hairs on the back of their neck, when we know that nationwide and historically, those those feelings have actually not been good predictors of actual safety, actual criminal intent. And that, as Alex said, Black members of the community are far more likely to make some people's hair stand up on the back of their neck for no good reason. And so that's a concern that I have.
Well, thank you for that, and thank you for that concern. And we are certainly open to additional dialogue at a later date on this and conversation concerning this. And we'll be glad to meet again to discuss it.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments for any of our administrators? Okay, then we will move on to our first report from a committee. This comes from the Undergraduate Admissions Committee. I think hopefully trying to see, yes, Aaron's now on the call. So Aaron Sheehan has been leading this committee, so he'll introduce this proposal.
Thanks, Charlene. Can you hear me okay? I'm contacting you from a parking lot. Okay. I'm the current chair of the Undergraduate Admission Committee, and our committee is tasked with looking at appeals from students coming out of high school who don't meet the regular admissions criteria and would like to kind of have a second look. We also look at the applications of students who have been put on suspension, UTC students who have been put on suspension, and if they want to come back, they have to kind of come through our committee for recommendation that then is forwarded to the admissions office. This particular year, Charlene has tasked the committee with considering a test optional admissions criteria for incoming students. And, you know, especially in the wake of the pandemic, this has come to the fore. We already have a provisional admission that is test optional, in part because so many students, high school students, couldn't take the ACT or the SAT with the pandemic last over the academic year. So this this new proposal is to make a test optional admissions criteria a part of our criteria. It doesn't replace the testing commission, the testing option. It can be one of a couple used. So right now, what we have and what would stay in place, even under this proposal, would be the criteria that students need to have a 2.5 GPA and an ACT of 18 or higher, or a 2.5 GPA and a 21 ACT. That's the completion of 16 core high school courses. But with the additional, with the proposal before you today, prospective students with a 3.0 or higher cumulative grade point average from high school can choose the test optional process, in which case they would be required to provide a teacher recommendation in place of those standardized test scores to be considered for admission, and they'd still need to complete, I said 17, I'm sorry, it's the 16 core high school courses that would still be required. Yancey is here with us, maybe Lee Pierce is as well. I can't tell if Lee is also in one of these little cubes I'm looking at, or one of these little squares. But they can also provide you with some data as to why, say, a 3.0 still gives us our best measurement for gauging a student's potential for academic success at UTC. It's also been the case that other schools around the nation have been moving toward a test optional admissions process. And I should say that when the admissions committee voted on this, the vote was 8-1 in favor. I'm happy to talk about that one dissension. I think it's a good, I think it's a valid dissension. It deals with math placement in particular. And if this proposal does make it into the policy books, I think it'll be stronger for having considered the one dissension we had in the admissions committee, and how to adequately replace the ACT, especially when it comes to math placement. So Yancey, I don't know if you're ready to take over with a slide presentation, but get ready, everybody, for some dizzying numbers.
Thank you, Dr. Sheehan. I appreciate it and appreciate all you've done to move this forward. Most of you probably know and have seen this is not earth-shattering or groundbreaking at all. We've seen, especially over the last few years, a number of national institutions who have gone to a test blind or test optional opportunity for students moving forward. This is a chance to make it a permanent fixture for UTC, as Dr. Sheehan said in his presentation. We shared information with the admissions committee around the reason for doing this change, and I'm happy to kind of briefly go through some of the information and then answer any questions for you. Lee Pierce should be on the call and can answer more specific stuff, that you might have as it relates to the policy overall. President Simmons, will you go to the next slide? So there are a couple of different tables that are here. One shows information about first-time high school GPA and ACT scores. We looked at 3 years of information for students to try to get a really good cross-section of individuals who were there. And I apologize, I don't know how to make this more interesting. So we're gonna sort of burden through it and try to provide the information that you might wanna know. But you'll see high school grade point average as we get to retention versus non-retained students that are there. Students who have a higher grade point average are retained at a higher rate. You do also see that ACT math and composite is a higher rate as well. So you see some correlation there to students who are higher. One of the most compelling ones is the second slide that's there as it relates to retention rate. Looking at the retention based on 1/2 of a point around grade point average, you'll see students with a 2.5 up to a 2.99 have a 52.3% retention rate. That jumps 13 percentage points at a 3.0 to a 3.49, and then jumps again at a 3.5 to a 4.0, giving us some certainty that there is a correlation with higher grade point average with retention of those students on the campus overall. And so our thought was, since we saw a big jump in the at that 3.0 level, it would be a good solid place to place this requirement for students overall. Next slide, Dr. Simmons. This gives DFW rate information for students as it relates to GPA and also under test score. The first chart at the top looks at grade point average. Most of you are aware that English has a +1 or English 1011 course. And so those DFW rates by GPA, you see they decrease precipitously as the grade point average goes up, almost a 20% drop from the 2.5 to 2.99 up to the 3.0 to 3.49 in that first block. You'll see almost a 20% drop in DFW rate there. You see the same thing as it relates to math by GPA. There is a large drop there, and then another larger drop when you go to a 3.5 grade point average for those students overall. It is important to note that the DFW rate for all English courses is about 18%, and then 29.6% in math for students. If you come to table 4, and I know I'm going through this quickly and I'm happy to stop and go back or answer questions about it. If you look at table 4, this gives the exact same breakdown of DFW rates by test scores. And so you see in English, there's not much of a difference as it relates to test score and DFW rate. It doesn't move a whole lot. And there's something weird going on with both English and math as it relates, because you'll see students over 30 have a little bit higher percentage. I know we're dealing with percentages and those numbers are smaller overall, but you see there's not a significant jump in the difference in either category. As you get to above a 19 ACT score in math and across the board as it relates to English. And so there are some less of correlation in terms of the English and math test scores as it relates to ACT versus the jump that you see in high school grade point average. Next slide, Dr. Simmons. And then the last one is just a breakdown of high school grade point average and also test scores by high school GPA so that you can see a number of the students that we're talking about have in the fall 2019 cohort, 92% of those students had above a 3.0 grade point average, and 87 of those students had a 19 plus GPA as well. So we're talking about not a huge impact. What we're really trying to deal with here is sort of the disparate impact that ACT and standardized test scores have on Black and Brown communities throughout the country. And so we're trying to make this a fair, equitable opportunity for students to be admitted and to gain admission, with the understanding that high school grade point average is a very, very good indicator of success in that first year. And truly, that's all that admission standards will measure is success in that first year. So I'm happy to stop there and take any questions that folks might have, and any other information that folks might need to share.
Questions to Dr. Freeman or Dr. Sheehan? I have seen a question go by in the chat if maybe someone could talk a little bit more about math placement without an ACT score.
Dr. Simmons, I'm happy to address it. Dr. Sheehan may want to add something to it as well. We've been working with Dr. Cox in regard to the chair for the math department. We've been working with him to offer some alternatives for students as it relates to math. I will share, and I know we're still walking through this, the provost and I are walking through this with Dr. Cox on some alternatives that are there. They already currently offer a math boot camp. That's a 2-week boot camp for students to take, and so you could have it as an option. They could, do what the English department is currently doing, and that is adding a +1, a supplemental support course for students who are in the college algebra course. That's typically the big course that we're talking about here as it relates to students in those STEM majors who might need an additional math course. For some of the liberal arts majors, they can take the Math 1010 course. And so we have been talking about doing a +1 effort for students in that math course. The third alternative is to use one of the other national test instruments for a placement exam. I know Dr. Cox has a lot of experience in looking at those from his previous experience at Clemson. And so I know that he and the math department were looking at some options moving forward. I think I saw Dr. Jen Stewart posted something about English. We have already gotten some approval from them to move forward. This is sort of what they've known and what they've had in place around the self-directed placement in English, and then also the +1 effort to provide supplemental support for students in their major. So those are 3 options that we're discussing with Dr. Cox, and we hope to be able to make those final in the coming weeks.
So questions related to this proposal?
I do see Dr. Weigel has put another question out there about how do you determine if the math course is needed from a high school grade point average. We would ask students to take it if they did not submit the ACT or SAT score to us. We would ask them to, we would require them to take the math placement exam or whatever we have in place. If it's +1, if it's math placement, if it's doing the boot camp or whatever it might be, we would have those students complete that requirement so that they get the appropriate math course.
Other questions or comments? Amanda Clark has a question.
Am I permitted to ask a question if I'm not a senator?
Sure.
Okay, so my question is around how this will be communicated to incoming students. I'm thinking about a potential student who sees on their application that the ACT score is optional for them, but they have taken the ACT. They just don't submit it because it's, you know, a financial barrier or something like that. For those students, it could potentially be in their best interest to submit their score so they don't have to take an additional credit hour or something like that in their first year. So do you have intended messaging to make sure that those students can make an informed choice?
Absolutely, we do. And I'm happy to share that with folks because we've been doing it this year. Out of almost 9,000 applications, we have about 3,000 students who have applied this way for this year. 1,700 of them have been admitted so far, and they have an average grade point average of a 3.53. Dr. Clark, this becomes another sort of mechanism for students as an entry point into the campus. And so the information that we've been sharing with them, of course, has been related more to COVID so far, but we will sort of adjust that messaging to say, here is another alternative for a student to be able to gain access to the institution. And we do anticipate a vast number of students are still going to submit the score to us, right? That they're taking it because Tennessee will pay for it. And so there are some, indicators there that we'll get those scores into the university anyway. But again, we're trying to do this to make sure we are addressing those cultural barriers that we know that the standardized tests have presented for some of our students of color. And I have another slide of data that would represent it as well as you kind of look at GPA and test scores for students of color. So that information is there. I didn't put it here because I didn't want to overwhelm everybody with more boring charts. But we can submit that for consideration as well for anybody who would like to see it.
Other questions? So this is a proposal that comes from a committee. It does not require a second. The proposal is to make ACT test scores optional for students who have a 3.0 or higher coming in from high school. If I've misstated that, Dr. Freeman or Dr. Sheehan, correct me. So
You're correct. Yep.
We need to vote on this as a Senate. Is there any further discussion? Okay, sounds like there's no further discussion, so we will do a roll call vote. If you vote yes, you're in favor of adopting this change. A no is you are not in favor. I'll do roll call by your first name. First name's alphabetical, but we have the officers first because they're just on my list first. Tammy.
Yes.
Jamie.
Yes.
Alex.
Yes.
Anne.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Bernadette.
Yes.
Beth. Beth Crawford. Brian.
Yes.
Chandra.
Yes.
Charlotte. Christopher.
Yes.
David.
Yes.
Donald.
Yes.
Eleni.
Yes.
Erica.
Yes.
Ethan.
Yes.
Hill. Ignatius. Ignatius? Oh, we can't hear you. So can you do thumbs up or thumbs down if we can't hear you? Oh, we can't see your thumb. Okay. I think that's a yes. Correct me if it's not. Okay. Irina,
Yes.
Jacqueline,
Yes.
Joni,
Yes.
Jody,
Yes.
Joshua,
Yes.
Julia,
Yes.
Lainey,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Marissa,
Yes.
Mingjan,
Yes.
Natalie,
Yes.
Nicholas,
Yes.
Phil,
Yes.
Priscilla, Ron,
Yes.
Sarah, Spencer, Susan, Stephanie,
Yes.
Wes,
Yes.
Zibin. Okay, the motion passes. Thank you very much. We will move on to our next proposal. Well, actually, it's not a proposal, it's an update. We're putting the reimagining committee next because Laura Ingram has a 5 p.m. class, and last meeting we ran way past it, and so she wasn't here to do her presentation. So Laura Ingram, take it away.
Thank you. Thanks, Charlene. Yeah, I wanted to make sure to be able to speak to you all and not have to run off and go to class. So Charlene, if you'll just advance to the next slide. So as I think you know, 4 subcommittees have been meeting with different groups on campus over the last several weeks to really do some deep listening about what what concerns these different groups have around general education, what hopes they would like to share with us, and that sort of thing. Next slide. So I'm going to speak first about the faculty subcommittee because this is the faculty senate, and so I have a lot of detail to offer you there. So we had 6 faculty town halls in March. And then in addition to that, we met with 5 departments who requested a meeting just to hear their specific input. Next slide. So in terms of some insights that we gathered around concerns, there was some conversation about workload issues and staffing issues. For example, if the program changes very dramatically, what might that do to individual faculty lines, for example, or will it require, lots of work dedicated to substantially revising courses or developing new courses? Faculty also acknowledge that students often don't understand or appreciate general education, and that becomes frustrating for faculty. There's also some concern around a focus on skill building versus focus on content knowledge acquisition. And there seems to be interest in wanting to do some of both, right? You need content knowledge often to be able to practice a certain skill. The strengths that faculty talked about around our current program, one is that it does offer students opportunity to get a broad liberal arts education because they're dipping into all sorts of various disciplines across campus. There's also a perceived strength is that students do have the opportunity to explore different academic areas before they declare a major. I say, if you'll go back, Charlene, I say perceived strength there because that is true to some extent. But often, as you'll see as we go through these slides, there are various reasons why students aren't experiencing that kind of sense of exploration in the way that we faculty might think that they are. Okay, next slide. So in terms of essential experiences or skills that all graduates should have, these are the things that faculty told us. So critical thinking, effective communication skills, understanding and appreciating diverse perspectives, civic engagement, perhaps acquiring some skill in a foreign language as a way to increase a student's cultural awareness, reading comprehension. There's several things listed here. So these are just some broad observations that the subcommittee made after hearing from so many faculty. Faculty are willing to make some significant improvements to our general education offerings as long as they have sufficient resources to do that work. Everybody pretty much acknowledges that the way our current non-Western cultures requirement is set up is outdated. And we would rather think about embedding more fully diversity, equity, and inclusion issues and cultural awareness issues throughout a revised program. There were some interesting conversations around where students complete their general education program. Should it be limited to the first 2 years, or what are some advantages and perhaps disadvantages of threading it, embedding it throughout all 4 years? And then related to that, there's some interest in a sort of a capstone experience for the general education program, so that in their senior year, excuse me, students would have the opportunity to work with other students from a variety of majors to bring their disciplinary expertise to a team to sort of work on solving a problem or completing some research, something like that. Further, faculty are seem to be really attracted to this idea of cohorting opportunities for students so that they'll be embedded in a community and have that support from the beginning. We also talked about adjusting our expectations for how students develop quantitative reasoning skills and acknowledging that what works well for teaching math majors may not work well for teaching general education math students. So the student subcommittee met with a lot of students. So they met with resident advisors, RAs, and so they ended up with dozens and dozens of students participating in that conversation, and that included a lot of upperclassmen. That subcommittee also met with 3 different classes of English 1010 or 1011 groups, so that we were able to capture feedback from those students in their early years with us. The biggest insight, and this may not be a surprise to you, is that students don't think gen ed works very well. From their perspective, they find it sometimes irrelevant and a distraction from their major. Their perspective is that I came here to study this major. That's what I want to study. And they don't really understand the value or the benefit of general education. They often see it as repeating high school courses. And so they don't understand why they're asked to take or forced to take a course that has the same title as something they took in high school, for example. They resent paying for courses that don't interest them. Again, this is their perspective. And advisors are, especially with our incoming students, advisors are forced to enroll students in courses that don't necessarily interest the students. So what would our students like to get out of gen ed? So they are interested in a well-rounded education that exposes them to new things that they maybe have never heard about or known about. They understand, or what they want is, in addition to the academic work, some real life skills that they would find very practical and could apply to lots of different work opportunities and life experiences. They really are interested in opportunities to learn about other perspectives beyond their own way of seeing the world. They're interested in some flexibility that would allow them to make a determination that they can switch a major without really losing a whole lot of course credits. Excuse me. And while they have a lot of praise for faculty who teach their gen ed courses, they want to make sure that faculty who are assigned gen ed courses are really passionate about teaching those. So for the staff subcommittee, they held focus groups with library staff, with the Writing and Communications Center, with admissions, orientation, career and leadership, and with the professional advisors group. So the advisors told this subcommittee that they don't like that they have to enroll their first semester students in courses that the students haven't asked to be enrolled in. We heard from our orientation folks and our admissions folks that they wish they had a better pitch for our gen ed. So some conversation around, you know, what could we build that would be really special and unique and a real selling point for UTC to attract new students. I didn't realize this number. 25% of our undergrads are first generation students. And so we really need to work harder to help them understand the value of a 4-year degree that's grounded in general education. One of the things that we found out, and we heard this sort of across several different groups, but students might look at the courses that are certified in a given gen ed category and get excited about the potential to take one. And then they go to the schedule for that semester that they're being advised around, and the course is not being offered, so they can't take it. And we also want to make sure that we're welcoming to our transfer students. Okay, so the community subgroup collected, they did an informal survey of employers, and they used minutes from the Chancellor's Roundtable when those members were asked to talk about what sort of essential skills or essential experiences they want our graduates to have. So you'll see some commonalities here, some, you know, a focus on communication skills of multiple types. What somebody called grown-up skills. So the idea of showing up to work on time, delivering your work products on deadline, et cetera. Some transferability of skills and knowledge so that our students can see how when they develop those in one area, they could use them in a different setting. And certainly they're interested in students' ability to listen, to really understand different perspectives, not just listen impatiently until it's your turn to speak again. So I wanted to share some next steps for this committee, and in particular, just make note of the fact that while any one individual gen ed course might be humming along just fine and doing really well, and the faculty's happy with it and the students are happy with it, gen ed really does exist in a pretty large ecosystem. And so we really have to pull together and think about all the different pieces of this and work together with academic affairs, but as well as with enrollment management and student success, you know, admissions, orientation, all those sorts of things to move forward together. So this summer, using this feedback that we've got, the committee is going to sit down and really talk through options for a program design and try to develop a prototype that we can bring back to faculty in the fall when we come back in person. That sounds good. And get more feedback from everybody and really use that feedback to refine the design prototype. And then we're hoping, this is our ambitious timeline, we're hoping that in early 2022, we can present that refined design back to faculty for your consideration. And by the way, let me just tell you that all of this information, all of these reports are on the general education website. There's a new section on that website now called Reimagining General Education. So you can go, you know, dig through the very colorful appendix that the student subcommittee put together. there's a lot of detail in there, but that's a lot of information. I'm happy to take questions.
Questions for Dr. Ingram?
Lauren, what do you make of, it seems like students both want quote unquote a well-rounded education and then also a laser focus on their major at the same time. And so I don't know how to, adequately get the message across. I think it's partly been a messaging problem. There's so much that I got out of my general education experience as an undergrad that I didn't fully appreciate until later. You don't realize that you needed those science courses so that you could make sense of an article in the Atlantic or the New Yorker or something like that a long time later, or an economics class, or or whatever it was. It was something that you come back to later, and I think it's hard for them at their position to see that I think they have a limited way of perceiving, am I ever going to use this? And so I think they have a very limited what would I say, definition of use. Yeah. So I've always been glad for the broader background that I've had, but the way that I use it is not like, solving algebraic equations to do my checkbook or something like that, which doesn't mean it wasn't important stuff to learn.
Yeah, you're right. A lot of people take a few years to figure out, oh, wow, that Chinese history course that I took was really,
sure,
really
right.
interesting and really helpful to me now that I'm living here. A couple of things. One comment that we saw repeatedly is a lot of the language that we use around general education right now is not student facing. It looks like it's been written for SAC COC, for example, to sort of check some boxes. And that's one thing that we really want to work harder on, regardless of what the design ends up looking like, right? Another thing that I think can help us in that area is one of the things that was helpful when we were doing in-person orientations. Hopefully we'll be back to those some this summer, but it's just asking parents who are sitting in the room, how many of you who have a college degree are working in the field right now that you majored in? And, or rather working in a field that's different from what you majored in. And just, the hands go up throughout the Tennessee room. And so that is a way to help begin talking to students about the value of a sort of a broad education that prepares you for life, right? Not just your first job after graduation, but that is something that we will have to be very intentional about, Chris.
Chandra Ward has a question.
It's more of a comment to follow up on Christopher's comment about messaging. I think that we have an opportunity to adjust the messaging, making it more relevant, given that I heard this interview on NPR the other day about how there's a bipartisan effort to put $1 billion into civics education and history, because partially spurred by January 6th and the dearth of misinformation that has permeated our culture, and the fact that 1,000 times more money has been given to STEM, solely to STEM education, to the detriment potentially of other types of courses. And it's very important. They stress that, and I think we all believe this and agree that general education courses are, and having a knowledgeable public citizenry is crucial for democracy. And this bipartisan, these two Congress people saw that. And I think that you can, with this happening now, leverage that to stress the importance of all of these courses and critical thinking and why we need critical thinking. And a lot of, I think, across the nation, employers are more sensitive to having people in their workplace that do understand different perspectives, are critical thinkers, people are realizing that that is a necessary skill and a desired skill. And I encourage Gen Ed to kind of, leverage that momentum, that cultural momentum to push the courses.
Yeah, thank you for that comment. I agree.
Nicholas Boyer's next. Nicholas, you're muted.
Yep, I got it. Thank you. Yeah, so I think that's great that you guys completed the survey to ask the students. And I think that's great that the students kind of spoke up. And, to have some practical based classes, I think is critical for a student. It's something that I've thought for years, but I didn't think would go anywhere. So I didn't really speak up about it. But figuring this thing out, I think will take some critical thinking. And what are the real skills that people need to be successful in life? And some of those things that I see are managing money, knowing basics of health, being able to develop social relationships, and how do you manage problems. These are things that I don't know where we learn them, but we need to learn them somewhere. So if general education can help to bridge the gap and teach some of these types of skills, I think it will be useful for everybody.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? All right, well then, thank you very much. We look forward to having a fall update on everything that the Reimagining Committee achieves over the summer.
Over the summer. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. All right, next up is a proposal that is coming forward from the Faculty Senate Executive Committee. This is a proposal we had planned to introduce at our last meeting, but we postponed due to the late hour. We have a FARC committee. It's the Faculty Administration Relations Committee. The charge of the committee and almost everything related to the committee is explained in the handbook, and we are not trying to change anything related to the charge of FARC or how it operates in its business. One thing that is left out of the handbook is how to actually elect FARC members. So FARC is a unique committee in that it is members are elected by the full faculty. Each year, the full faculty elects 2 FARC members, and each person serves 3 years. So there's 6 members, there's always 2 rolling off, 2 coming on. If you read the handbook, it tells you to look to the bylaws, the Senate bylaws, for how to actually elect FARC members. And yet then you go to the bylaws and it tells you to read the handbook for how to elect FARC members. So we found ourselves in a never-ending circuit path of going round and round and never knowing how to actually elect FARC members. This was a real problem this year because we had some urgent FARC business to handle right off the bat in August, and we didn't have a committee. We didn't have 2 of the 6 members. So the Faculty Senate Executive Committee drafted this proposal, which would outline how to go about electing the 2 members who would then serve on FARC. So I'll take questions, comments about the proposal. Okay, well, this is a proposal coming from a committee. It does not require a second. So is there any further discussion on this proposal?
Hi, Charlene, Erica here. Maybe I'm not seeing it right, but I see towards the top, the following criteria at the time of election, 1, and then maybe I'm misunderstanding. I see a 1, I'm expecting to see a 2. I don't, maybe that's just, I'm not understanding how it's worded there.
Good question. I'm trying to figure out if I messed up the formatting when I copied and pasted it onto here or not.
Mm-hmm.
A 2 should be after the and, Charlene.
Okay, so if you notice, we'll add the letter 2, so it says 1 full-time appointment with the rank or equivalent rank of associate professor, lecturer, or higher, comma, and then it should say, and 2, either engage, et cetera, et cetera. So thanks for finding that, Erica. We left out the 2.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Okay, well then we're going to put this to a vote. We'll do our roll call vote. Yes, you're in favor of this, the bylaws being amended to include this language. No is you are not in favor. All right, Tammy.
Yes.
Jamie. Jamie Harvey.
She said yes.
Okay, thanks. Alex.
Yes.
Anne.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Bernadette.
Yes.
Beth.
Yes.
Brian.
Yes.
Chandra.
Yes.
Charlotte. Christopher.
Yes.
David.
Yes.
Donald.
Yes.
Eleni.
Yes.
Erica.
Yes.
Ethan.
Yes.
Hill. Ignatius.
Yes.
Irina.
Yes.
Jacqueline.
Yes.
Joni.
Yes.
Jody.
Yes.
Joshua.
Yes.
Julia.
Yes.
Lainey.
Yes.
Liz.
Yes.
Marissa.
Yes.
Mingjong.
Yes.
Natalie.
Yes.
Nicholas.
Yes.
Phil.
Yes.
Priscilla. Ron.
Yes.
Sarah. Spencer. Susan. Stephanie.
Yes.
Wes.
Yes.
Zibin. So the motion passes. I will update the bylaws, and then obviously we've already passed April 1st, but we will put out the call for nominations and quickly get back on track to getting the next 2 FARC members elected for next year. All right, we have another proposal coming from the Faculty Senate Executive Committee. So as you know, last meeting, we changed our bylaws to create non-tenure track divisional members. This brought to our attention that there was a division missing in our bylaws. The Honors College had not previously been listed, in part because it's very new. It's only been around a few years, and for the first few years it existed, it actually had no faculty lines associated. The college itself, everyone was had a line in another department, and so we're represented by other divisions. But they now have some non-tenure track faculty who are dedicated solely to the Honors College and thus are not represented by other divisions. So we wanted to add the Honors College as a division so that currently their non-tenure track faculty would be eligible, and if they ever had any tenure track faculty, they could also create, be eligible for the tenure track division. So it's a very simple change. It's just to add the Honors College to the list of divisions. Are there any questions, comments? Julia.
Hi, I just had a clarifying question. So is it a question of adding them as a division which will have ramifications outside of Senate representation, or are they already a division and we're just listing them, or does the division designation only affect Senate representation?
this is solely for Senate representation. So these are, this part of the bylaws is just defining the voting divisions. So it's creating a voting division for the Honors College. Other questions or comments?
Charlene, how does this, I guess for numbers of faculty, because I don't know how many faculty, both tenure track and non-tenure track, are in the Honors College. We passed the motion, it's not the right word, last meeting to have equitable representation for the non-tenure track lines. So how, just in terms of like, is that going to, I'm assuming it's going to operate the same way, where if they have tenure track faculty, that will be part of the numbers. And then non-tenure track faculty, which is, from what you said, is what who the Honors College currently has. So can you, I guess, just elaborate more on numbers? I'm not going to say no. I'm just curious for numbers.
Sure. So you are correct. There's a different part of the bylaws which we're not attempting to change. We changed last time, which defines like how you figure, like does the apportionment, right? So it's 1 to 15 faculty is 1 senator, and then 16 to I think 30 is 2, and so on and so forth. So it's very clear. You take the number of people in each division and it determines the number of senators. For the Honors College, according to OPER in the fall, so we always do apportionment in the fall, according to OPER, there were in the fall two non-tenure track faculty in the Honors College. All tenure track faculty who might teach in the Honors College aren't actually aligned with, their lines are not part of the Honors College. Their lines go back to their originating department. So in very practical terms, it means the Honors College, at least presently, would have 1 non-tenure track divisional senator.
Okay, thank you.
I think Linda might be trying to talk, but if you are, Linda, you're muted.
No, there I am. Okay, so I'm on my phone walking my dog and my phone is about to die, but I appreciate the Faculty Senate taking this on and including us. We have, just want to correct OPER because I've been going back and forth with them. We actually only have 1 faculty member. We have 1 non-tenure track member and we have 1 administrator, Owen Foster, who also teaches, but right now his appointment is solely administrative. Thanks.
Thanks. And sometimes we've noticed sometimes our OPER data is a little off, but we will clean that up. It would create a seat for them. If they wanted to run, they could. If they didn't, it would remain open until there are other people who are in that division who want to run. Other questions or comments? Okay, if there's no further discussion, we will vote because this is coming from a committee, so it doesn't require a second. Any last minute discussion? Okay, let us vote. Tammy.
Yes.
Jamie.
Yes.
Alex.
Yes.
Anne.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Bernadette. Bernadette. Okay. Beth.
Yes.
Brian.
Yes.
Chandra.
Yes.
Charlotte. Christopher.
Yes.
David.
Yes.
Donald.
Yes.
Eleni.
Yes.
Erica.
Yes.
Ethan.
Yes.
Hill. Ignatius.
Yes.
Irina.
Yes.
Jacqueline.
Yes.
Joni.
Yes.
Jody.
Yes.
Joshua.
Yes.
Julia.
Yes.
Lainey.
Yes.
Sorry, okay. Liz.
Yes. Yes.
Marissa.
Yes.
Mingjan.
Yes.
Natalie.
Yes.
Nicholas.
Yes.
Phil.
Yes.
Priscilla. Ron.
Yes.
Sarah, Spencer, Susan, Stephanie,
Yes.
Wes,
Yes.
Zibin. All right, that passes. Thank you very much. And just as a reminder, we are still taking nominations for non-tenure track divisional members. We're taking those nominations through Sunday. So if you want to nominate someone in any of these divisions, or if you are a non-tenure track faculty member who wants to nominate themselves in any of these divisions, please send an email to Stephanie Todd. All right, thank you very much. Finally, we have a proposal coming forward from the Undergraduate Academic Standards Committee. Turn the floor over to Amanda Clark.
Thanks for having me again this month for Faculty Senate. So there is a section of the academic catalog in the section about enrolling at UTC. In that section, it discusses things like admission criteria, transfer criteria, etc. There is an additional section in the catalog that talks about prior learning assessment credit. PLA credit is assigned awarded to students based on previous learning experiences that they come to UTC with. And what we're proposing is a relatively minor amendment to the language in the catalog about PLA credit to make it a bit more explicit what the process is for our admissions and registrar's offices to determine what should be awarded credit and what shouldn't. What I think Charlene is sharing here on the screen are the sections of the portion about PLA credit that are to be amended. So there's a section about PLA. It discusses the fact that students can be awarded up to 60 credit hours when they come to UTC based on their previous experiences. A number of students will pursue PLA credit through the portfolio process that currently is administered through our interdisciplinary program, integrated studies program, I'm sorry. But there are a number of other examples of PLA credit that might be awarded. So there's a section of the catalog currently that says examples of these types of PLA credit are, and there's a list. Included in that list are AP credit, CLEP credit, military service, the portfolio, and currently it also lists that PLA credit might be awarded for coursework or prior learning that is approved through the American Council of Education. In the last couple of years, it's become a little bit problematic to figure out which types of courses should be awarded PLA credit if they are approved by the American Council of Education. Because ACE is not an accredited institution nor an accreditor, it's become a little bit confusing. There are a number of online learning platforms that are currently offering course material to students for a nominal fee that have been approved by the American Council of Education. It's through websites like straighterline.com, sophia.com, and the like. In many of those circumstances, the coursework can be self-paced over, let's say, a 4-week period with unproctored exams, syllabi that are not all that explanatory about what the coursework is like. So what we're proposing with this revision to this section of the catalog is to make it explicit that PLA credit is awarded contingent upon department head approval. So what this will do is when a student comes to admissions or to the registrar's office with some previous learning that they'd like to receive credit for, it puts a process in place that pushes that to the department head so that the department head can request the materials from that course that they'd like to review before making a decision about whether credit can be awarded. It's important because some of these courses like college algebra or introduction to psych or maybe an intro to mass communication course are often prerequisite courses for further study. And so the department head within that area needs to be able to ensure that the learning objectives and the learning that's happened as part of that online course are appropriate and do actually meet the prerequisite requirement for further study. So on the screen here, Charlene has shared what changes we are looking to make. What you'll note is that we've removed the American Council of Education college level credit recommendations from the list of examples, but below that indicated that other types of PLA may be awarded. So coursework that's done online that is through a recommended source from American Council of Education may still be awarded, but we just haven't explicitly listed that. And then put it back on the department heads to make the decision as to whether it would be approved or not.
Are there any questions or comments?
Amanda, what's the anticipated workload? Like how many of these requests come in? It's just what is, I agree with the processing. I'm trying to consider what is also the workload you're now putting on department chairs to go through all, because psych might be common-ish, but I'm sure math is highly more common, for instance.
Sure, historically it's been less than a dozen in a given academic year that have gone to department heads. And I should be clear in saying that the current process that admissions and the registrar's office uses is to send it to the department head for approval. It's just not explicitly stated that that is the process. So in answer to your question, Alex, workload won't change on department heads. It will just make explicit that this workload is part of their role and put it in the catalog so that students and our administrative offices know what the procedure will look like.
Got it. Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Okay, this is a proposal come from the committee. It doesn't require a second. Is there any further discussion? Okay, then we will vote. If you vote yes, you're approving the changes to the catalog. If you vote no, you are disapproving. Tammy?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
Alex?
Yes.
Anne?
Yes.
Barry? Bernadette?
Yes.
Beth?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Chandra?
Yes.
Charlotte? Chris?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Donald?
Yes.
Eleni?
Yes.
Erica?
Yes.
Ethan?
Yes.
Hill? Ignatius?
Yes.
Irina?
Yes.
Jacqueline?
Yes.
Joni?
Yes.
Jody?
Yes.
Joshua?
Yes.
Julia?
Yes.
Lainey?
Yes.
Liz?
Yes.
Marissa?
Yes.
Mingjun?
Yes.
Natalie?
Yes.
Nicholas?
Yes.
Phil?
Yes.
Priscilla? Ron?
Yes.
Sarah? Spencer? Susan? Stephanie?
Yes.
Wes?
Yes.
Zibin? Okay, the motion passes. Thank you very much. On to new business. Our first new business item has to do with accommodating students serving in the military, and I believe it's Brett Fuchs who will be speaking.
Yes, thanks, Charlene. Hope everybody's having a good meeting. No, it's a long one. I will try to be brief as well as answer any other questions outside of this that folks may have. So state law requires that students who are in active military service, who are deployed whether that be here domestically or abroad, be given reprieve from their classes. That means that if a student is, for example, sent to assist with a COVID vaccination site or with the tornadoes from last year or whatever the situation may be, that we allow them to make up the work when they return from that service. And that generally means giving a student incomplete. I know this is not our typical standard across the board, especially for a student who may be missing early in the semester. Part of the reason that I've asked Charlene to add this to the Faculty Senate agenda now early is that we've received already quite a few students who will be having military training, which is also covered under the state law, that will run into the beginning of the fall 2021 semester. They will be gone for 2 to 3 weeks at the beginning of the fall 2021 semester. We are talking to those students about whether it would really be in their best interest to start in the fall, given that they're going to be gone, but many of them want to start, and we're going to be required to allow them to make up the work while they've been gone. So this is something that we want everybody to be aware of. As this will be occurring, we don't have an option. It is a requirement under state law, especially as we are a public institution. Right now, we have quite a list going, but we don't have confirmation yet because none of them have received their final official orders. Once we do, we will contact their fall instructors to let them know and do that prior to the beginning of the fall semester so instructors can make appropriate accommodations. That's the quick summary. Happy to answer any questions that folks may have, but wanted to put it on everybody's radar at this point.
Questions for Brett Fuchs?
Brett, I have one. You know, a lot of the online classes will allow a specified number of drops for assignments. So the question is here, are those drops allowed to be given to students so they're not behind and then they can continue the work when they get back?
Yeah, that's a hard one to answer. The law is not that specific on it. You know, our recommendation to faculty has been, and to students, that they should continue the work and use those drops. And then come the end of the semester, if they've really done poorly on an assignment they would normally use as a drop, we could try to re-examine that with the course instructor, but they should do their best not to need that drop in the class. And I would say 9 times out of 10, that works out in any given situation where this may happen. So a student needs to be hospitalized and is out, they have a funeral, whatever it may be. So that generally works. So as long as faculty are open to the fact that there may be, again, 1 out of 10 that this happens with, that they may need to offer an alternative assignment or whatever it may be, that would probably work. Of course, the student can certainly fight that. I don't think that many would, as long as they can truly get the work done and earn the grade that they should get. So Tammy, I think overall, to answer your question, I think that should work for the most part, because the law isn't specific on that, but I think we just need to be open to the fact that there may be some that there may need to be special accommodations for otherwise.
Other questions for Brett Fuchs?
Thanks,
All
everyone.
right, thank you. Next item under new business is the bookstore and their new system for adopting textbooks. And we have Kelly Wright.
Hello, everyone. Hope you all are having a good day. The bookstore is going to be introducing a new website portal for adopting course materials. We had hoped that it would be closer to being set up at this time, but we are still working through some of the setup details. Once we have worked those out and those are completed, I will send out a message to campus, which will include training sessions and support for the new book ordering process. The new platform that we're going to is going to be called AIP, Adoption and Insights Portal. With this new application, it is striving to give faculty a personalized experience. With that being said, it would pull all of the courses that you are potentially teaching and create like a landing page when you sign in so that you could adopt your course materials at that time. It also will simplify the adoption process for book materials. If you are teaching multiple sections within a course, you'll be able to do a one-click adoption versus having to go in and out of the site to be able to adopt your materials for those courses and sections. Faculty in Light is scheduled to sunset on April 30th. It could be that we will have some extra days that it will be available for book orders to be placed. After this tentative date, we won't have access to the system. So once it does officially sunset around the April 30th date, in order for book orders to be submitted, they'll have to be emailed, or if you happen to be on campus, you're welcome to stop by and give it to us in person. Shelley and I will be working next week emailing faculty what book information was used previously in the spring, if that was the last term that your course was taught and your book material was used, or we will go back to the fall semester to include that. So in the meantime, while we are continuing to set up this new platform for you all to submit your book orders, please just respond back to the emails that are either coming from the TN430@bncollege.com or the SM430@bncollege.com, so that we can ensure that we are collecting book information for our students. I will say that, collecting book information for the fall semester in a timely manner is still very important so that we can continue to source for used books. Due to the pandemic, used books are in limited supply. So the longer it takes for us to get a book order, the less likelihood that we will have an opportunity at procuring a used book for our students if they are using a print material. But in the meantime, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out either to myself or to Shelley, and we will be happy to help you in any way we can.
Thank you. Any questions for Kelly Wright? All right, thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
Our next item of new business is related to the Quality Enhancement Plan for SAC COC, also known as QEP. I turn it over to Tammy.
All right, guys, it is that time again for a reaccreditation from SAC COC, and part of that reaccreditation is a QEP. The university has selected Dean Teresa Lidka and Cindy Williamson to co-chair the committee, and the committee is being made up of members of the faculty, students, executive branches, et cetera, but I'm going to let Teresa explain this to you. She's going to give you a short overhaul because nothing really starts happening until the fall.
And there's just one thing that we're going to ask of you before the fall, though. Thank you, Tammy and Charlene, for the time. I know you guys have a big agenda, so I talk fast anyway. So as we all know, every 10 years, SACS reviews and accredits the university. The review is conducted by a group of faculty and staff peers from accredited SACS institutions who will visit us in an off-site fashion and in an on-site fashion. It will involve literally every department here at UTC will be touched in some capacity or another. There are two main components to the review, the compliance certification report, which are the 74 standards of our current operation and how they address the quality of the programs and the curriculum we provide to our students. The piece we're talking about today is the second piece, which is the quality enhancement plan, which, as I like to quote Michelle Deardorff, who says it's the most fun you can have with SACS. The quality enhancement plan is a nod to the future. It is SACS allowing us to develop a focused program to improve student achievement or improve student learning outcomes. We can do this by combining existing programs or creating entirely new programs. The job of the committee that we have formed, that Tammy is on, and Tammy is the rep for the Faculty Senate on this group, is to help the campus understand select, recommend, and design this new QEP. The group will meet literally, we've had our organizational meetings, and we will, well, I'll keep going now. So what we've done is form the committee. And again, we're big. We are broadly representatives of students, faculty, staff, divisions, governance groups, community members. Everyone is there. We're about 30 plus at this point, and we'll pick up a few more people starting in the fall. We early in the process, when I got involved back early in the spring, working with some institutional from colleagues from the Office of Planning and Effectiveness and Institutional Research, we took a broad look at all our institutional data and where we get it. So NESI data, FESI data, our strategic planning efforts, advisory groups, all of these constitute our data. And we came up with 7 potential topics. From there, we recommended 3 of those to the executive leadership team, and they came back to us with 3 topics to start our efforts. So the 3 topics that the committee is considering that we will take out to the campus for campus input now is equity, diversity, inclusion as the topic of our new QEP. Cohorts or collaborative learning as the topic of our QEP, or community engagement. So I'm sure you're hearing similar themes to what Lauren mentioned, some of her findings, and that's really the intent of the QEP, to base it on a topic defined by our institutional planning. So our next steps for the committee are on Monday. I'm going to blast out an email to the campus where we'll be offering daily 50-minute meetings on the QEP topic, so folks can get a chance to understand the components, as well as comment, talk, give us direction, suggestions on their preferred QEP topic. From there, we'll launch a campus survey that will go out to students, faculty, and staff. And putting all the input we receive from the open sessions, from the survey, we will recommend a QEP topic by June 1. At that point, Au Pair steps back in and they'll do a deeper dive into our institutional data, and then we'll reconvene back in the fall, and the true work of the committee will really begin. We'll begin calling for pre-proposals from the campus, be they curricular, be they programmatic, on the topic selected. The committee will work for about the next 16 months probably on this, with the visit culminating as part of our SACS visit, which will be in March 2023. Our QEP will be reviewed and officially approved or not. I'll stop there. I'd be happy to take any questions about the QEP, but please know that if your department wants to meet to talk about the QEP with myself, I'm chairing the committee with Cindy Williamson, who is our SAC COC liaison. We will be happy to come to you, be a Zoom, be an outdoor meeting, be an indoor meeting, be a meeting in a bar. We don't care. We're happy to meet to talk QEP. So keep that in mind and just let us know when you're ready, and or come on down and have join one of these campus meetings with us. But happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Great. Questions on QEP? Surprised we don't have hot burning questions on QEP.
Bring them to the meetings next week. Bring them to the meetings by all means, or email me. Like I said, we're happy to meet with anybody, anywhere, anytime. So just let us know.
All right, thank you very much. 2 other new business items, and these are very quick informational items. So TUFS, the Tennessee University Faculty Senates. If you remember last fall, late November, early December, a survey went out and we had very good return rate at UTC. We are the 2nd highest return rate of all 14 institutions, public institutions in Tennessee. And I find that very impressive. We were only 2nd to MTSU, and their faculty is much larger than ours. But anyways, we did the survey back in the November, December. We got results for the state as a whole back in January or February, and I shared those with the Senate and the administration. And then our partner in this core, which is a group at MTSU, was processing the data for each individual campus. And so last Friday, they sent us the report on the data for our specific campus. So now we have data for ourselves and we can compare it to statewide data. I'll be really honest, we just got it on Friday. I haven't myself had time to really dig through it. I did distribute it to the Faculty Senate Executive Committee, and I sent it to the Chancellor and Provost. I'll be digging through it more extensively this weekend. We're also part of UFC, the University Faculty Council, which is the 4 UT campuses which meet. We meet on a monthly basis. We'll be meeting next Wednesday. We had previously agreed that the 4 campuses in the UT system will share each other's report, and then we plan to create an executive summary specific to tennis UT schools, and we plan to present that executive summary to the board. So the board will get this data about workload. If you remember, it really covers 2 really important areas. The first is workload in general, including how much work 9-month faculty members do in the summer and how much or little of it is compensated. And then the second thing was really comparing workloads between pre-pandemic and pandemic times, and noting the changes that have occurred in different areas. I know in the state results, for example, the data demonstrated that faculty are spending more time on teaching and less time on research. And so we'll break that down in the for our campus and for the system as well. And I think this data can really help individuals, particularly individuals who are not in the day-to-day operations of academia, so our board and potentially legislators, to better understand what our jobs are and what we do. So when we have an executive summary for the UT system, I will share it with everyone. I just think it's a great set of data that we can use when we have to support arguments that we're making. So it's really a resource for the future. The second item is we did have our faculty town halls on the handbook. I typed up the feedback, and there was some great feedback about areas that we could improve our handbook. I distributed that to the executive committee and to the provost and the vice provost. This is really something for next year, so I'm sure it will get to the handbook committee for next year, and that committee can start looking at how they might tackle some of the things that were identified. But I put it on the agenda so that it gets in our archive, so it's there so we can keep referring back to it. Any questions about our tough study or the faculty town hall? All right, we have no unfinished business. We did have an item on the agenda last meeting that we skipped over, and it was we were going to start talking about what a faculty awards committee might look like. The Faculty Senate Executive Committee decided just to postpone that conversation to the fall. It's a committee that wouldn't do work until next spring, and so we thought, why try to rush and make decisions now? That's really a topic to be tackled in the fall. So we don't have any outstanding business. Which brings us to faculty concerns. I open the floor to any faculty concerns.
Yeah, I asked last week or last meeting about summer pay, and they were going to get back to us about some sort of consistency or some sort of messaging about what was going on with it. So I'm bringing it back up.
Great question. Do we have anybody who would like to speak to summer pay? Okay. Okay, well, I'll follow up on that, Nicholas, and try to get an answer. But yes, yeah, we need to talk about that because there are inconsistencies across colleges. So I'll follow up on that.
Great, thank you.
Other faculty concerns? Oh, I see the provost has put in the chat that the deans have not met yet, so about summer pay. So I think that's something that will come later, but I will follow up on it.
Great, thank you.
Okay, any other faculty concerns? Okay, Then I don't have any announcements. So this is our last regularly scheduled meeting of the Senate. Of course, senators do serve through June 30th, and if a need arises between now and then, we can always call a Senate meeting. I don't have anything currently on the horizon that I think will require a called meeting, but if something does come up, I'll let you all know. It is a tradition that we adjourn this meeting and then immediately start a meeting for planning. So Tammy will take over planning for next year's Senate. So do we have a motion to adjourn this current meeting?
I motion that we adjourn.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Then I turn over the floor to Tammy.
Good afternoon, y'all. I will try to make this quick. We are, thank you all for serving on Senate. Thank you all who are rolling off and are gleefully rolling off. I'm assuming some of you are. But thank you all who are here. For anybody who has been elected and who are here, I am thrilled that you are willing to step up and serve the university. We are going to start talking about where we want to go. Charlene has done a wonderful job kind of getting some ideas on the table, and she and I have been in meetings, talking about various aspects across the campus on issues from diversity to student rating of faculty, et cetera, et cetera. So is there anything anybody really truly wants to see happen next year? Everybody's tired and has left the building. I am going to call a meeting, an introductory meeting for the new senators who have been elected. We are still waiting on one division to hold elections. I hope that occurs soon. If it doesn't, we will meet without them and hopefully appoint next year someone to represent that division for that spot. Charlene, do you have anything else that we need?
I don't. Beth has risen her hand. I don't know if other people can see that, but Beth Crawford's risen her hand.
I don't have my participants on. Oops.
So I was just going to suggest, Tammy, could you maybe open a discussion in the faculty site where people could post ideas for the question you asked kind of maybe caught us off guard. Like, what are we looking for next year? Maybe give us a place where we can post ideas.
That is a wonderful idea. I will do that.
And I see a question, and I know you have an answer for this, Tammy. There's a question about will we remain on Zoom for next year?
We will remain on Zoom next year. Charlene and I found out that we have much more participation on Zoom. It allows a lot of people who would normally not be able to attend meetings for responsibilities such as being a parent, and I think Aaron was in the car rider line today. I'm presenting. His children go to school at the same place mine do. So it allows people access, and I think that's one of the things as we progress along with Faculty Senate that we have to really consider. Once upon a time when we did all these things face to face and we set time schedules, it was a very different time, and now people are, especially with more women serving on as faculty, on the executive committees, and not to say that men don't have children, because I have many colleagues who do and who are often the primaries, but it allows people access. And so I really do appreciate this being online and giving people a voice. And a lot of times people won't say things in large meetings, and they will online. Any other questions? All right. Well, I appreciate you. I know Charlene appreciates you. And you know, let's all give Charlene a hand of applause, applause, because she has done an amazing job. You can raise your hand, you can clap in your little reactions. She has done a fantastic job. She is a very hard act to follow. And so we will see how it goes next year. I'm sure we will have lots of fun.
I'm embarrassed to say I skipped over my agenda item where I was going to say thank you to everyone who served this year, all the senators that served, everyone that chaired a committee, everybody that served on a committee, every faculty member who filled out one of the many surveys we kept sending out. Every little thing that was done, everything from a small filling out a survey to a really big chairing a committee, all of it makes a difference. So thank you to everyone that participated in shared governance this year.
And do not think that the surveys are over. We will be sending out a survey in May. And also, if you have not filled out the committee survey, please do encourage your colleagues to fill out the committee survey. And so we can make sure everyone is represented on campus this coming year.
And I'll just say, because this has come up in years past, even if you're on a committee right now and you want to continue, please fill it out. We don't automatically know you want to continue, so we always repopulate based on the survey. It's not automatic, so please fill it out. I see Felicia McGee has her hand up.
Oh, Felicia.
I didn't mean to put my hand up. I was trying to click on the heart reaction.
See, look what support.
Oh, I need
We'll
to
give her a heart. We'll give her a heart. I'll put a heart up. Thank you, Felicia. All right. Are we in, if we have nothing else, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor? Aye.
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 All right. Thank you all. We appreciate you. Charlene, do we need anything else? I don't think so. Charlene.